Waterfall, the CCW podcast. Hi everyone, it's producer Tom here, introducing a brand new episode of Waterfall. This is the water efficient podcast by CCW, the Consumer Council for Water. We're all about saving money, saving the environment, combating climate change, and teaching you more about being water efficient. And I'm introducing today's episode because it is a little bit of a slightly different episode where me and Karen, our beloved Karen Gibbs, got to go, off-site, off-platform, our own adventure, and we'll detail that in a moment. But of course, it's not just myself. I'm joined by Kath Jones. Kath, how's it going?
Hiya, Tom. It's good. How are you?
I'm very well. And, hopefully this is cool between us. You're not too jealous because I know you wanted to go to Gardeners World Live.
I really did, Tom. I think you know that I view you having asked me to introduce these is like rubbing salt in a wound. I was absolutely gutted to not be able to go to Gardeners World, but it sounds like you and Karen had a fantastic time and met some really interesting people.
We did indeed, and we'll get to two separate interviews in a moment. But just before we do that, of course, I want to urge everyone listening to subscribe to the show, to go back through the archive and check out all the old episodes. We have, a ridiculous runtime now of past editions. And of course, you can get in touch with us. That's podcast@ccwater.org.uk if you have any questions or any comments or anything like that, any feedback. And please leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you go. But yeah, Kath, this was suggested to us by my comms boss, who just said, maybe, get in touch with Gardeners World Live. Perhaps they might want to do something on the water efficient thing. And I just thought that was impossible. I just thought that wouldn't happen. But I want to give a shout out at the top of the episode to Julie. Julie was absolutely fantastic, who facilitated the whole thing and got us our press passes to go over there. And yeah, me and Karen descended upon the the magic kingdom that is Gardeners World Live, and we had a great time, Kath. You were sorely missed.
I don't believe you had time to sorely miss me, Tom, but I appreciate the sentiment.
In retrospect, it was a sore missing in retrospect. But. So yeah, we're gonna jump right into it now to the interview. The first one we're gonna play for you now is mine and Karen's chat with Malcolm Moodie, chair of the Solihull and District Orchid Society. We had a great chat about orchids. Here is me and Karen speaking to Malcolm Moodie. What would you like Waterfall to cover next? Send your water-saving topics to podcast@ccwater.org.uk. Okay, and we're back here live again at Gardeners World Live. This is producer Tom with Karen, and we are speaking to Malcolm, who is president of the Solihull and District Orchid Society. Malcolm, how's it going?
Oh, very well. Very busy in here, and I don't get much of a break, so thank you for calling me out now.
And one of the reasons I wanted to speak to you is because on the podcast, we are all about saving water, valuing water, right? Being efficient with water. And orchids are one of the most water efficient flowers. Is that correct?
Yes and no. If you compared an orchid to a cactus uses much less water than an orchid does. But if you compare it to the typical thing that people are growing, then most certainly it is more water efficient than they are.
I see.
And there is a good reason for that, because I know you're going to ask me that question.
That is my next question.
Is that most orchids don't grow in the ground, they grow on trees. They're epiphytic. And their roots just dangle in the air, and they take their moisture and their nutrients from the air. And therefore, they don't need to be watered as often as a typical plant does. But that's the reason why they are very efficient use of waters. And they store water and use it as they require it.
Mm-hmm. Dealing with orchids, they're very easy to damage, right? To overwater. What should people be on the lookout with treating an orchid?
The vast majority of plants that die in people's hands is because they overwater. If you see a leaf beginning to shrivel, the natural thing that people do is think, it must need water. But shriveling leaves could be caused by too little water or by too much. And 9 times out of 10 with orchids, it's because they've had too much. And what people often do is they stand their orchid in a nice decorative ceramic container, because it looks much nicer than just being in a pot. And instead of taking it out, they just water in situ. The water runs down the pot and sits in the bottom of the ceramic pot, and it gradually builds up. Now, orchids have been on the planet for millions of years, but they've never evolved the ability to swim. And so what happens is they basically drown, they die. The roots just rot because they're normally dangling in the air. So when you water them, you should always take them out to your draining board, take them out of the ceramic container that it's in, water them there, let all the water drain away, maybe for another 20 minutes, then put them back in the ceramic container, then put them back on your windowsill. And that avoids that problem.
And am I right in thinking that they prefer rainwater to tap water, for example?
Most certainly. The problem that we have in this country with water, and you know this probably better than I do, is that water varies enormously from town to town to town. And a lot of water, particularly in the southern corner of the country, is very hard because it takes its water, the water permeates through the limestone and it picks up all of the salts, and you end up with an awful lot of scale in your kettle. But of course, if you're using that to water your plants, one, you do not know what all the nutrient value is in that tap water, and many of the salts that are in there are actually not good for your plant. They will lock out other nutrients. Whereas if you use rainwater, which has got virtually nothing in it at all, and then you add a good fertiliser that's got all the macro and micronutrients, you know the plant is getting all the food that it actually needs.
And that seems like a really good way of recycling something that you can have access to freely.
Well, absolutely. I've got 8 water butts, but I've got
8 water butts.
Yeah, I've got 300 orchids, and I use 30 gallons a week. And so
Wow.
if I use it out of tap and I'm on a water meter, that would be expensive. But my water is very hard, and so I know it's going to damage some of my plants. So as you say, free supply of water that's come out of the air. It is also full of oxygen because it's fallen through the atmosphere, and orchids need oxygenated water, not stagnant water. So there's a double benefit.
Oh, that's brilliant. I hadn't even thought of that aspect to it.
No, that's fascinating, Malcolm. And why orchids, may I ask? Like, why are you so fascinated by it? I mean, they're beautiful, but why have you...
My father was a national standard chrysanthemum grower, and when I was a child, myself and my siblings were dragged all over the country to go to chrysanthemum shows. And my father, when he got to about 60, he'd won nearly every trophy that he could win in the UK. And he said, I'm going to change, I'm going to pack up. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to pack up growing chrysanthemums. And we had a neighbour, a retired colonel who was getting very aged, and he said to my father, would you like to buy my collection? And so my father said, oh, that's a good idea. So he bought his collection. He never managed to get to grips with growing orchids, but every time he came to stay with us, he'd always foist an orchid on me. And 1 became 5, became 20, and I decided I was either going to throw them away or do it properly. And I decided to do it properly, and it's become a complete and utter obsession ever since. I mean, they are fascinating things. I mean, you're standing here surrounded by the most beautiful flowers you'll ever see. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how couldn't you be gripped by them?
Yeah. No, they are a really exotic looking flower, aren't they? They're beautiful.
And they grow, I mean, not all of them, some are a bit difficult to grow, but the vast majority of the ones that you buy from the supermarket will grow very, very happily in a modern home. Because they're nearly everybody's now centrally heated. You're too young to know what it's like to live in a non-centrally heated house.
I am, it's true.
I'm not so much.
If you remember, when you were young, you'd get up and you'd scratch Jack Frost off the window in the winter to see what was going on outside. That never happens now because people live in nice warm houses. And orchids love warm houses, which is why they're now so ubiquitous. Because they grow perfectly well in the environments that we now live in.
Yeah, and I find as well, when you lose the first flush of flowers as such, I keep the plant going, and I've managed to get them to reflower as well.
Jolly good.
So I find them a really good investment.
Well, if you were going to spend £15, for instance, on flowers, and you said, well, I'll go and buy a bunch of flowers, you know that within a week they're going to be withered and they're going to have to be thrown away. If you spend the same amount of money buying an orchid, probably a phalaenopsis, because that's the one that's most available, you know that it's going to flower for 3 months for you. And if you do what you've been doing and you keep them growing, another year later, they'll flower again. Well, that's a great investment for £15 rather than every 5 days you're throwing a bunch of flowers away.
Indeed. And any general, more wider tips for gardeners about being more water efficient in the garden? We always like to hear from the experts.
Well, of course, the key thing is to collect your water. Get water butts. I know you've got to buy the water butt in the first place, but it's going to last for 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, they don't rot. They're very thick plastic. Mm-hmm. And I would advise everybody to collect water. You just need to be mindful where you collect that water from. If you collect it from a conservatory, which has probably got some sort of plastic type roof or glass roof or a greenhouse, it'll be fine because the water will not be picking up salts. If you're collecting it off of your house roof, you need to make certain that the roof tiles are not concrete tiles, because they often stain them to make them look like fired clay, but they're made from concrete. And if you have got concrete tiles, when water runs on over it, it draws salt out of the concrete. And you can end up with an awful lot of high salts, almost as bad as your tap water. But if your roof is tiled in slate or fired clay tiles, it won't pick up anything at all. And you'll have nice, clean, fresh water to use on anything. And it will save you lots of money. Everybody's going to be on water meters sooner or later.
Yeah.
And therefore, you're much better having a water butt and saving it and using it on all your plants.
You've really hit the nail on the head there, because we're really trying to promote the fact that people can do an awful lot to reduce their water use, which is great. But importantly, working with nature,
yes,
and creating a really healthy environment for the plants that they cherish as well. So it's
the only thing you need to be mindful when you're storing water is that once you've stored it, it begins to stagnate because it's not moving.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I have another 30-gallon tank in my greenhouse, and I move the water into that tank after I've watered my plants. And I've got a small aquarium pump and an oxygenator, and that runs all of the time, and it puts back in all the oxygen that was lost whilst it was sat in a water butt. And it costs me £30, and it will last almost forever. So it's a very small investment, but it means that your water is just like it would have done if it had fallen out of the sky today.
We didn't prime you for this question. Well, we weren't going to interview you originally, were we, Malcolm? But I'm really glad we did. This has been great. But we tend to ask all our guests if they know their daily water use. In terms of litres per day. Is that something you might know off the top of your head? Perhaps not?
No, I really do not know, Tom.
No.
I'm sorry. All I know is that I use nearly 30 gallons every week on my orchids. And using rainwater is saving me a small fortune.
It sounds like it is.
It really does. And I guess finally then, how do people find your work? Are you online at all? Is there anywhere people can go? Or how do people get in touch with you? Or
I'm well known within the orchid world. If you go online and type in my name, either spelt with the IE at the end or the Y, because often people misspell it, you will find
Malcolm Moodie, we should say, sorry.
Yeah, Malcolm Moodie, Moodie it is. But if it's often spelt with a Y, because that's the common spelling, you will find me in hundreds of places, because I lecture and do demonstrations and shows all over the place. I'm also the president of the local Orchid Society, and I'm a member of a number of other orchid societies as well. So a lot of people know me, and often people come and talk to me for advice on water and nutrients, because that's my specialism. And so I spend a lot of time talking to many of the other growers within the UK.
Oh, that's brilliant. It's really been fascinating talking to you.
Truly has. Malcolm, thank you so much. It's been brilliant.
Absolute pleasure.
That was absolutely fascinating, Tom. I'll tell you what, I didn't realise that orchids actually grow on trees, not in see-through plastic pots. But Malcolm is clearly hugely passionate about, his orchids. And also the water use. I mean, 30 gallons a week. What's that, 136 litres?
It's 8 water butts, which you can hear astonishes me when I was listening to it. Yeah, 300 orchids. And yeah, a truly great man. It was last minute as well that was put together. He wasn't the person we were originally supposed to speak to. But yeah, we had a terrific discussion. We'll put all the links down below if indeed you want to get in touch with him. He's happy to speak about orchids anytime, any day. And I always like learning new words, Kath. Epithetic was a cool word that he shared there.
Yes, that is a brilliant word. I think having killed off a few orchids in my time, quite possibly from what Malcolm was saying, by over-watering. So there was a tip for me. I always just referred to them as aerial roots, but epithetic, yes.
It was quite specialist what we're talking about orchids, but we made sure to, drill down into general lessons that we can learn. And this is something that we're going to hear in the next interview as well. But it was interesting that Malcolm was echoing what we often say on Waterfall, right, Kath? The importance of reusing water, like not wasting it and making sure that you're getting the most out of what you're using.
Absolutely, wasn't it just? So there is, as you say, orchid growing quite specialist, although his dad was doing chrysanthemums. But yeah, I think just saying that, I know most of us don't have that many plants at home to water, but actually, 136 litres a week is huge. So it's massively important that Malcolm isn't using our clean drinking water for that, but is instead using, rainwater, which the plants prefer.
Indeed. So we will push on now. That was actually, we recorded that episode within this sort of giant mass tent of all these different places. And the next interview that we did was with Josh Fenton. And this was outside. This is at a beautiful show garden that we're about to detail. So let's check in now with me and Karen and Josh. CCW, passionate about championing the best interests of everyone who uses water, now and in the future. So this is very exciting. We are reporting live, myself and Karen, producer Tom and Karen Gibbs, Waterfall here at Gardeners Wildlife. And we are with Josh Fenton, and we are standing in an incredible garden, a groundbreaking show garden, which was designed to, empower gardeners to address the national climate crisis. Josh, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
And
how are you?
I'm very well. How's it been? How's this experience been, bringing this garden here?
It's been hard, very hard, grueling. The weather's been very changeable, funnily enough. It hasn't helped. Last year was like 30 degrees. This year it's been on and off, cold, rainy, sunny, everything.
And can you tell us about the essence of this garden, like why it's been designed, what challenges it's answering?
So it's been designed to try and bring to light some solutions for water management and conservation in a domestic garden, because it's important, basically, and because I think we can't rely on water companies to fix it all immediately. I don't even think all the onus should be on them to do that. We all need to take responsibility for our input into the problem and the solution.
I mean, you've already mentioned the extremes of weather we're now seeming to have to contend with. And how does this garden particularly help with that sort of managing those extreme events?
So, from a gardener's perspective, the idea was to make the higher raised bed planting drought-tolerant planting mix, which then free drains into the lower planting, which has effectively a reservoir underneath it, which acts as a wicking bed, which is like a passive irrigation system and storage system, so that you can have two styles of planting, one which is more moisture loving, not wetland but moisture loving, things you'd typically have to water in a drought, and then in the top bed things that you shouldn't have to water in a drought, and that bed it free drains in, so you're collecting water that falls on that and not over watering those plants either.
And how do you minimise environmental impact? Because that's something we're always grappling with when we're thinking about the challenges of gardening. We don't want to be too oppressive in that way. How have you kind of mitigated that?
I think if you're gardening, you have to accept that you are messing with a system which is it's unnatural to mess with it. So you have to accept that straight away, I think. But then we then have tried to use materials which are incredibly long-lasting, like corten steel for our raised bed structures, so there's no maintenance and an incredibly long life. So although it's steel, which has a carbon footprint, the lifespan then outlives pretty much any other material, and the maintenance cost is so low that you really can't beat it. If you go for brick, render, wood, they're all going to fail in time. Corten steel, you're looking at hundreds of years of lifespan and reuse applications. So I don't know the maths on it, but the lifespan alone, I think, makes it quite an eco-friendly option, really.
And by capturing the rainwater, as when we're getting these torrential downpours, it's making maximum use of a resource that's available to all of us, isn't it?
Yeah. So we, rather than going for a permeable patio, which would let the water back into the water table straight away, we've used it as a catchment zone, which will help to top up our wicking beds, and the plunge pool, which is a reservoir for topping up the wicking beds as well. And our green roofs also act as catchment zones for topping up all of the systems we have. Should we have so much rain that everything's full, it will then overflow into a French drain, which will then just water a wild tree area in its permanent location. Here, obviously, it doesn't do that.
So it's really thinking about where the water's coming down, how you're using it, and ultimately where it's going to, the full sort of cycle almost, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the thinking. It is slow it down, use it, enjoy it, and then pass it back onto the water table, so that in a storm surge it's not immediately all rushing into the sewers and overflowing the sewage works and then leading to these big outbursts into our rivers. Because essentially that is the big problem. There's so much paving and tarmac everywhere. In a big storm, everything gets overloaded and it causes a problem. And we're all part of that problem. That's not just down to water companies to fix.
Because am I right in thinking that you've used permeable surfaces where you can as well?
Here, I mean, I guess the gravel is permeable, but like I said, the pavement is more of a catchment zone rather than a permeable zone. The drought bed the idea is that it's permeable to a point that it catches the water and feeds it back into the wicking beds and holds it there instead. I haven't really used permeability. It wasn't part of the idea. Yeah. The idea was to hold it here for as long as possible before distributing it onwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
The cuddy. We're interested in the cuddy,
the
radical reimagining of the toilet water and waste. Can we see that? Sorry, can you take us to see we're walking towards the cuddy right now. Oh, we are, okay. So Karen, describe the cuddy. What are you seeing on the cuddy?
It's a sort of circular wooden structure.
Yes, very tall.
This is the cuddy.
Okay.
With a toilet in it.
With a toilet inside, yeah. So can you tell us about the cuddy, what it's kind of responding to?
So this is the cuddy. This is the product called a cuddy, and this is our eco bathroom. So if people are interested in composting toilets, they can find this company called Compo Closet. They've got some really cool products.
Right.
Obviously, people get a bit icky about toilet poo, wee.
Naturally. Not our main host Mike, who's unfortunately not here, but most people.
Yeah. But the Compo Closet Cuddy is a really nice design of a composting toilet. They've made it a very sort of sanitary product, and it's quite easy to engage with. It's not as far removed from a flushing toilet, I don't think. It has some really nice features. It has like a nice...
We're stepping inside now. We're going inside.
It has a nice shutter, which is more hands-free. I have a Simplu, but you have to put your hand here to close this flap.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And it's a little close for comfort. This version is a lot more remote. The idea in most composting toilets is to separate your solids from your beds, which reduces smells and it increases your chances of composting the browns, basically. It has a urine sensor, which is nice because our one doesn't, and if people don't check and it overflows, you have a really nasty job on your hands.
Indeed.
And then we also have an agitator, so every time you go for number 2, you add in some like bark or whatever, and that just mixes it all up and gets the composting process going without you having to manually mash it up yourself, which isn't very nice. And then
it's remarkable, isn't it, Karen?
It is. It's really amazing to see, and it's as you say, it's not so different from what somebody would recognise as being a normal flushing toilet.
It's not, and the thing is, you're saving 9 litres of drinking water every time you use this, instead of a conventional flushing toilet, which is crazy, considering we've spent resources cleaning that water to drinking grade, and then we use it on our feces or even just a urine. It's just madness, I think. It really
it is, Josh, it is. And we're always trying to bring it home for our listeners, right? So in terms of general, this is the incredibly bespoke, beautiful garden, isn't it? Very inventive. But for the layman, are there any general tips you'd like to impart to people in terms of water saving whilst they garden?
I think capture what you can and reuse it is the big one, and to try and do it in ways where you don't feel like you're sacrificing space or losing something. So to have some water storage and irrigation underneath your planting is fantastic. You don't have to invest in Acco roof blocks to do that. They're a great product if you can afford them, but there are other ways of achieving it, using pond liner and a product called Leica, and then a geotextile membrane over the top. You'll get the same effect. It won't be quite as stable and quite as good, but it will do the job. As well as tanks. You can get lots of different reclaimed tanks and things, and being creative with it about how to capture it, store it, use it.
It's what we always say, isn't it, Karen? Reuse is so important.
Yeah, and I think, even encouraging people to get their own water butt.
It's so hard sometimes to encourage people to do that.
And it's as I say, I mean, I certainly now no longer ever use tap water on my garden.
Yeah.
And I've just got my water butt attached to a shed roof. It's amazing just how much water, particularly when you think of the start of this year and the weather conditions we've had. I mean, I'm hopeful I've got enough water to last me for the rest of the summer.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I used to do is every time I'd have a bath or a shower, I'd just have the plug in, and then at the end I'd get a siphon going with a hose out the window and water the garden that way. That was quite a nice, satisfying way to just, as long as you're using the right kind of soaps, to water your garden for free, feel a bit more sustainable. It helps. That's the idea with this, is that that's your shower water in there.
We're looking at a bucket fixed to the ceiling at this moment.
So you heat
far fancier than I've described, but yeah.
You heat it with cobbles from your wood burner over there, put them in the water in the bucket, and your shower volume is only ever going to be that much, so you know that you're not going crazy wasting water. Collects in there, it doesn't just drain away immediately, then you water your plants with it.
Yes.
It's just a way of decomplicating the reuse, I think, is the key.
Yes. And we didn't prime you with this question, so this is something we normally ask guests, so if you don't know, it's fine, but are you aware of your daily water use at home per person?
I am, because we moved on to a wide beam boat just before Christmas, so we have a 500 litre tank that we have to fill up, and then that's what we use. So I know that we fill that twice a week. It's 1,000 litres, and we don't have a flushing toilet.
No.
Or a functional shower at the moment. So that's just washing machine, dishwasher and taps.
And we should say, the name of the garden, Lunatica, is that right? Lunatica. And where does that come from?
The garden incorporates a lot of moon themes and iconography because of the moon's power over water. And then Nautica is a kind of watery sounding word. I just conjoined the two.
I love it.
Yeah, I like a snazzy name.
And there's an afterlife for this garden, isn't there? Can you tell us about that a little bit, please?
Yeah, there is. It's going to go to the Eleanor Hospice in Gravesend, and it's going to be slightly reconfigured, but not much, just an orientation thing. And it'll be installed right next to their new wellbeing centre, which provides kind of outpatient care and wellbeing services for inpatients. There's an end-of-life care place, and it's really lovely to know it's got a legacy and it's got a purpose going forwards, and it's bringing all of these eco-credentials forwards with it as well, and into a permanent setting where we can then start to study the ways that they work over a longer period of time and start to kind of be able to back up these ideas with a bit more research and information to show people how beneficial it is if you can do it, if you put that structure in place. I think that the hard selling point with a lot of water saving things is that they're underground, so you can't see them, so you have to persuade someone to spend a bit more money on something that they'll never see, and it can be a hard sell, but the long-term gains, I think, if you can back it up with data, will help, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And, how marvellous to think that your garden is going to live on and bring so much pleasure to people as well.
Yeah, hopefully peace for people, somewhere tranquil to just try and escape for a while. I mean, it's a huge thing.
And finally, just as we wrap up, what would you like people to take away from Lunatica?
I'd like them to take away at least one way that they can start to think about saving water in their daily life. That is the big takeaway, and to challenge their toilet habits. Again, even if it is just a toilet at the end of the garden that gets used twice a week, it will help. It really will help.
So this has been absolutely spectacular, seeing this wonderful garden. We're now outside, and there's an eel here, which I believe is some sort of totem for the garden, you said?
Yeah, so they navigate by the moon when they're what is it called? I'm really sorry. When they go across the Atlantic.
Yes.
To the Caribbean.
Migrating,
yeah. I guess. They use the moon to navigate, and obviously they're a very water-based creature, so they perfectly encapsulate Lunatica for us.
And Josh, finally, if people want to find more of your work or, that sort of thing, where would they go?
Best thing would be Instagram. Our handle is Fenton_Gardens. Or we do have a website as well. If you Google Fenton Gardens, you should find us.
Okay, well, Josh, thank you again. This has been a real, genuine pleasure.
Wow, Tom, there's some serious stuff that I think we've heard there from Josh about his show garden. I actually thought what was really fascinating for me is we've talked before on Waterfall about drought hardy plants, about making sure that you're putting the right plant in the right place. But I loved what Josh had done there through separating those drought tolerant plants and then lower planting of the ones that need the water. And instead of letting all of the rainwater just drain away, he's got it so that it quickly drains from the plants that don't need it, but is used, so kind of increases the water that is available for the plants that do need it. I thought that was really innovative, actually. Fascinating.
It was wonderful, and I hope we did enough of a good job to sort of paint a picture in your mind, speaking to Josh there, but we will put links down below in the show notes which show you from the Gardeners World Live page itself, kind of, what the garden actually looks like. And it was wonderful, and I think, it's such a challenge, really, when you're making these, austere experimental gardens to actually ensure that they're water efficient, because I think a lot of waste is inherent within that. But he definitely did that. We had the pavement as the catchment zone, and as you say, just the way that the garden is kind of responding to the water crisis, the self-wicking bed, the ultra permeable drains, the even the toilet that he had as well, which was a great shame Mike wasn't there. Mike would have loved that.
He would have loved that. I have to be honest, I was also quite fascinated by the cuddy, the idea of a composting toilet, which is something I think I've only ever experienced on campsites.
Yes.
But hey, it's perhaps something I can investigate in the shed.
Yes,
Probably not,
exactly.
Probably not.
Not really something you try at home as such, but still, Josh was leading the way there. As I say, we'll put the things down below, and that was a Gold Award garden as well at Gardens World Live. It was in this whole row of these incredible things, and thank you again to Josh for taking time out of his busy day. We even, when we got there, me and Karen, Julie was good enough to sort of shoo out the crowd, and we kind of got a little bit of tape there, a little bit of a red carpet treatment, so that was excellent.
Oh, you're just saying that to make me even more jealous, aren't you?
Yes. But again, if you guys want to see Lunatica in action, then we'll put the links down below. And again, we'll link down to Malcolm. And, just once more, a huge shout out to Gardeners World Live. Maybe we can go back next year, Kath, and maybe you and Karen can go to Spite Me.
Maybe it'll be my chance.
You can learn about, hyacinths or something.
Learn about something new. No, I thought it sounds like it was a brilliant day out for everyone, and it's actually really thrilling to have the likes of Gardeners World, who are so hugely well known with telly-programmes and magazines that I'm actually a subscriber to, and so on, genuinely being able to put out messages to all of us to help us think of the environment more, as well as save water. I know we're all about water saving, but it does all tie into looking after our environment, and it's fascinating, and I have learnt things from both of our interviews there.
Oh, indeed. So I guess just to finally say that, of course, you can follow us on all the various platforms, at CCW Voice or on Twitter. We post some stuff about the podcast there. Of course, subscribe to us on the main channel, leave a review, go onto iTunes, go back through the archive as well. We've had a little bit of a break because of Purda, but we are back now. We are releasing episodes regularly. We've got quite the backlog, of which Kath has featured in a few as well. So we've got some great stuff coming up in the coming weeks that we've been sitting on for a while. So and also, of course, get in touch with us, podcast@ccwater.org.uk. But that's about it. Any final thoughts, Kath, on this?
I am going to remember not to overwater my orchids going forward, Tom. I'm going to try and make them flower the next year as well.
Okay, well, this has been producer Tom and Kath. Thank you again.